Hi, this is Katie with Empowering Astrology, and this is your weekly look at the astrology of January 6th through 12th, 2020. So we are in a new year. So I think if I remember correctly, this is our first video for 2020. So thank you all for those who are joining me live on the call tonight. And for those who are watching the replay on YouTube and also on IGTV on my Instagram page, hello. This is, as I was saying, your weekly look at the astrology. And we have a lot to unpack this week. There's a lot of astrology going on, which I'll be going through. But yeah, let me know how you're going. I mean, if you've been paying attention to some of the things that I've been writing or your horoscopes, we're in eclipse season. Eclipse season officially began on the 26th of December, so just a couple weeks ago, and that opened us up to a new time depending on where Capricorn is in our chart. And so when we are in between the eclipses, as we are now, so we're going to have a lunar eclipse on the 10th of January, I believe that's Friday. We're in this kind of weird, pregnant, magical, slightly chaotic time when the furniture of our lives, the stage, so to speak, is resetting. And there's a little bit of a sense of like we don't quite know what the next scene is going to be. So we're watching, we're kind of paying attention to the clues, we're seeing who's coming in and out of our life at this time, what themes are being activated. But these are very powerful eclipses. I'm just checking in on the chat. Yes, Rachel, thank you for your comments about my Starstruck talk. Another thing that I should quickly mention is I was a part of an online global astrology summit called Starstruck, and this was hosted by the AstroTwins, if you are familiar with their work or not. And I was invited to be one of the 24 speakers, which was a huge honor and opportunity. And I got to talk about a planet that's close to my heart, and that's Saturn. So if you missed my talk for the Starstruck Global Summit, I mean, you're not just registering for my talk, but you're getting 23 other, really top-notch astrologers who are talking about varying topics that are relevant to the astrology of 2020. And I talked about this week's Saturn-Pluto conjunction. We'll get to that in a moment, but thank you, Rachel, for your feedback. And if you did watch my, some of you lucky people got it to watch it for free. We were doing, like I would say, an RSVP thing where people could get it for free before when it launched on the 1st of January. But if you did have a chance to watch it, let me know what you thought. I mean, that's I've been getting some feedback. In fact, I just spoke to somebody today who kind of watched it and wanted to book with me so we could talk about what these things meant in her own life. But the link is in the show notes, but if you're quick on the keyboard, it's astrostyle.com/Katie. That's going to give you the links to learn more about this global 2020 astrology summit. And even if you go to my website, and I did put the link in the show notes, there's a clip from the talk, so you can kind of see a little 4-minute clip of the talk that I did with Ophi of the AstroTwins. So yeah, all really great stuff. I'm actually going out of town in a couple of days, so one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to watch a lot of them while load them up on my phone and watch them when I'm on the plane or in transit. So let's talk about this astrology this week. Just seeing my hello, Joanna, and everybody else that is joining me live tonight. So let's talk about the astrology this week. There's a lot going on, and I think that there's some anxiety about what's going to happen. Let me just put it to you this way. We're kind of seeing a lot of different forces converge at the same time. We're having a lunar eclipse this week, so that already tells us that, okay, so one part of our life is getting activated, one part of our life is seeing the narrative change depending on where Cancer is, because this lunar eclipse is in Cancer. We know that lunar eclipses tend to be a time when we have to take action. There's a sense of immediacy to something that's going on. There's heightened emotional energy, heightened psychic energy. And this lunar eclipse is happening in Cancer. So Cancer, the sign of home, family, emotional connection. And I think that this lunar eclipse is really saying to each and every one of us, how do we find balance in our life? Because right now, there are a lot of eclipses in Capricorn, which is like work, 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 and I think that this is a time when we have to find that balance and make sure that we are getting what our emotion, getting our needs met. Cancer is such a needs to be held, needs to be loved, needs to be, taken care of. It's the antithesis in some ways to Capricorn's hard exterior, but they both need each other. They both form this sort of energetic polarity. One is not better than the other, one is not less than the other. So it's just a reminder that in our own lives, we just have to have balance. So that's happening this week. On the same day, the 10th of January, Uranus turns direct at 2 degrees of Taurus. So this story, Uranus and Taurus story that began last March 2019, is activated again. So depending on where Taurus is in our chart, that part of our chart is like lighting up and needs new perspectives and going off in a new direction. And I think the Uranus and Taurus story has been that we need to get out of our comfort zone, because it's a sign that just by its nature wants to double down on kind of keeping things nice and easy and safe. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you need that energy in order for life to survive. Taurus is the first earth sign. If you're trying to plant a seed in earth that the seed doesn't feel safe, it can't thrive, and there's not going to be any life. That's why Taurus as an energy, it's like, okay, let's just allow things to happen. So you have this electricity happening in Taurus right now. And I also think that Uranus and Taurus is a reminder, and I've been seeing this in my client work, that we need to come back into our bodies. We need to, sometimes we're up here. There's a lot of things happening up here. We live in a highly digital, information saturated world that we kind of forget the rest of us. So that might be a little bit of a theme in the astrology this week. But Uranus is like the lightning bolt. It's the light bulb going off. It's the eureka moment. It's, oh my God, I have to do something differently. And then we have the eclipse energy on top of that. Further, on Sunday, January 12th, Saturn and Pluto make a historic and rare conjunction in Pluto. So that's just, Saturn and Pluto, they're coming together in the sky. They're coming together at 22 degrees of Capricorn. Fun fact, they have not been together in the sky in Capricorn since the 1500s. So, no big deal. But what does this mean for you? So if you watched my Starstruck talk, and I'll give you the cliff notes right now, the point that I was trying to make is that starting in 2008, yes, 2008, and if you read my January horoscopes, link is in the show notes, I was talking about for each sign that something began in 2008. Maybe it's obvious, maybe it's not so obvious. Certainly that was a pivotal year for many people. That was a pivotal year on a global level. And why am I talking about 2008? Well, that was the year that the planet Pluto first went into Capricorn, a sign that had not been in since the 1770s. Pluto is a very slow-moving outer planet. It's a planet that's located beyond Neptune. It has a highly irregular orbit, never mind that, but it takes 246 years to go around the sun. Therefore, it takes 246 years to go around the zodiac chart. So here it is, starts to go into Capricorn, which is just like following the hands on the clock and seeing the Pluto hand on the clock start to point towards Capricorn. Pluto says that especially when it went into Capricorn, that how we do Capricorn, how do we do ambition, how do we do structure, how do we do government, how do we do power, has to completely transform. And I'm going to steal something that my client said to me today, is that everything that's not in integrity or not built on integrity has to be obliterated. I know those are strong words. We're dealing with Pluto energy here. Pluto energy is about evolution and transformation. But in order to do so, we have to kind of see what's underneath. You know, we kind of pull the rock up and we see what's underneath the rock. So there's this element of shadow work that's going on with Pluto, the things that we haven't wanted to look at, the things that we haven't wanted to see, the things that we project onto other people because we do not own it and claim it within ourselves. So there has been this long transformation process that's been happening since 2008 in a particular part of your life, because it's pointing to a particular part of your chart. And that's where you've been doing deep work, deep shadow work, pulling things out, looking at them, releasing them. You know, for some people, it may be the past 12 years have been quite difficult. Certainly if you are a Cancer, a Capricorn, a Libra, or an Aries, some points of the past 12 years have likely been maybe some of the hardest that you've been through. So there's been this sort of big pressure to change. There was other things that were happening in the last 10 years that kind of added on top of that. So here we are, it's 2020, so 12 years later. Pluto is still in Capricorn. It will be in Capricorn until 2023, 2024. So we're almost to the end of this 16-year story. Yeah, 16-year story. And then here comes Saturn. Now, if you've been paying attention to my astrology or other astrologers, Saturn went into Capricorn. So we're following now the Saturn hand on the clock at the beginning of 2018. The very end of 2017, the beginning of 2018. And Saturn's function is to consolidate, to build, to get people to step up into integrity, to take responsibility seriously, to do the right thing, and to grow and to mature. And Saturn is kind of like, you know, looking over what we've been doing over the last 12 years and checking in on it. And this was a point that I made in my Starstruck talk. And how are we doing with that part of our life that's demanded total transformation? So I think when Saturn and Pluto come together on Sunday for the first time since November of 1982, it's both an ending and a beginning. So we're ending a cycle that began nearly 40 years ago. Some of you might not have been even born then. But it's an ending of a long cycle. One that one was in Libra. So it was all about relationships and how we interconnect and socialize with people. This one's in Capricorn. So I have this feeling, and this is another point that I made in my Starstruck talk, and I've been calling Saturn Pluto conjunct the wrecking ball, which, you know, I'm not trying to sensationalize, but I think that it kind of gives us an image to work with. This idea that we have structures in our lives. These can be invisible structures. These can be beliefs. These can be emotional patterns. These can be addictions. That we have these structures in our lives that need to come down. It's like that last big push. And I think there we'll continue to do our Pluto work while Pluto is in Capricorn the next few years. But I just think that 2020 is like a big point in the story. And I think that we have to, Capricorn can speak to barriers and limitations and contraction and fears. And so what is that last big push that we need to do? Whether, I can only speak for myself. I'm a human being on this planet too. I'm doing my work. And so I have to, let's say, get very clear about what are my fears? What are my fears around having agency in my life, taking control, taking power, or having too much power, or not having a healthy relationship with power, or needing to face my fears, or maybe I've been trying to live this narrowly and I have to open up even more, but that means having to break down these very old calcified structures. Capricorn is the sign of matter and manifestation. it's hard energy. So that's why I think that we need that kind of that Saturn Pluto together to really break through those stubborn things. It could be fears around emotional connection, emotional intimacy, vulnerability. You know, maybe we've created a very almost impregnable shell around us. And how do we let people in? So this energy is going to be different for everybody based on, you know, where Cancer and Capricorn are in your chart. And I, you know, whether you watched my Starstruck talk, whether you read my January 2020 horoscopes, thank you everybody. I know they were a little bit late. I've been so busy. It's like all the planets went into Capricorn, Jupiter went into Capricorn, and I've just been like nonstop working since the beginning of December. But yes, do go and read your horoscopes. They are linked in the show notes. But that's going to give you a little bit more of a clear picture about what's going on based on your sun sign and based on your rising sign. But I think that's an area, you know, something this week, it needs, okay, I'm a Scorpio, so this is a strong metaphor alert, but I think something this week needs to die, you know, metaphorically, of course. You know, something needs to end, and maybe it's a very old karmic pattern, a very old karmic cycle, because Saturn does speak to karma. Saturn speaks to the lessons that we have. Pluto speaks to the soul. Now, this is just my perspective as an astrologer. Maybe there are other astrologers out there that come from a different tradition or different perspective, but this is how I see it. So I'm trying to personally really capitalize in the best possible way. What is this time trying to push through? How can I really be real with myself? The things that have been my blind spots that I haven't wanted to look at, because Pluto kind of speaks to the shadow and the things that we don't want to see, so that I can have a profound transformation this week. And here's the other thing. Because Saturn and Pluto are coming into a conjunction, it's like a seed has been planted. It's a new beginning. It might be a little bit before we truly have the perspective of what this time meant for us. Because we're in Capricorn season. Saturn's in Capricorn, Pluto's in Capricorn. We're on Capricorn time right now. And Capricorn time is a slow time. You know, Capricorn says it may take 7 years to see something, because Saturn runs in these nearly 30-year cycles. So we need to be patient. I don't think everybody is going to see something like dramatic this week. I mean, there is an eclipse. Sometimes eclipses can be dramatic. But I think that we need to be aware that, you know, for instance, the seeds that were planted back in 1982 with the previous conjunction, it took until 2001 with the opposition, when Saturn and Pluto were opposite in the sky, to see what had been birthed at that time. So on a personal level, it might be quite some time. It might be 15 or so years before we see what was birthed at this time. So I think, you know, to kind of put it into perspective into this week, because, I mean, who the heck knows what's going on in 15 years, I think that the more that we can clear space for the best possible outcome, that something hopefully can take root that's positive. I mean, Jupiter is in Capricorn. I mean, I was saying this to somebody else today, like, I try to be a little, I don't try to overpromise Jupiter. You know, sometimes Jupiter, other astrologers can get very excited, like, oh, it's the luckiest planet. But I think it's giving us a silver lining or an opportunity in this time. So this is my advice for you all. It's the advice I'm giving myself. So you have to kind of listen to your own intuition and figure out what's right for you, of course. Nevertheless, Mercury will be in the mix this week. It will make a conjunction to Saturn and Pluto on Sunday. So Mercury in Capricorn speaks to the wisdom of making, and hopefully making, the right choice. So hopefully we're making the right choice this week. We're making potentially some serious decisions. Thus is the nature of Saturn and Capricorn and everything that's going on. Do we need to overthink this week? No. Maybe it's a good weekend, if you can, to meditate. Maybe not, maybe take it easy. I've just personally felt intuitively that since the eclipse that happened on the 26th of December, that there's kind of some chaotic energy in the force, so to speak. So I'm trying to lay low as best as possible, not do anything too crazy, but at the same time feel the call of all this Capricorn energy to really make some decisions, to take action, to go after certain ambitions, and to take that next step up in my life. So that's just my own personal advice. But nevertheless, it is an eclipse week. There is a part of your life with this full moon that's getting, let's say, put into the spotlight. So what part of your life is that? So we'll just quickly go around the zodiac so So if you are an Aries, this is the part of your chart that talks about home and family and your living situation. So this eclipse may mean you're moving in the next 6 months or moving soon. Not necessarily, but it's very classic astrology that there's a move. You may need to kind of make some sort of bigger decision about how you're getting your emotional needs met, how you are, let's say, feeding and caring for your life. Kind of as a side note, with all this Capricorn energy that's going on, the South Node is in Capricorn and the North Node is in Cancer. So this is what's called a North Node eclipse. And we need to bring in more heart and soul into our lives. North Node is in Cancer. We need to bring in more emotional connection. We need to work on our relationships. We need to work on what family means to us. And if, it doesn't necessarily have to be blood family. It can be spirit family or chosen family. So we're really kind of bringing in those elements, and this is doubly the case for Aries or Aries rising. I will put this eclipse into perspective. There was a Cancer solar eclipse on July 12th of 2018, so a year and a half ago. And that one was the first in the series of Cancer and Capricorn. So I mentioned that because this lunar eclipse, in a way, kind of seeds back to that solar eclipse. That solar eclipse in July of 2018. So this might be a fruition of something that began at that time. That's some perspective for every sign. If you are a Taurus, this is a part of your life that talks about your voice, how you communicate, how you learn, how you think. This eclipse might demand you take action on something, especially with information. You've received information. For Taurus, this is a time when you generally, with the other astrology that's going on, you need to open up to new perspectives. Because I think there's a little bit of a story going on in your chart right now, Taurus, that maybe you have this very kind of fixed view of the way that things can happen. But I think this eclipse is giving you an opportunity to get a very different perspective and maybe even get out of your way. So that's, you might be making decisions about travel or making decisions about education with this eclipse. Gemini, this is the part of your chart that talks about money and income, how you earn it, how you spend it, and the resources that you need. It's also about value and worth in both that literal and, let's say, more metaphoric sense. So this eclipse might bring some changes in how you earn an income. It might bring new resources in, new money in. You might be spending more money, or you might need to really kind of take action, decide what is truly of value for you. Because I know for Gemini, you're also doing a lot of deep emotional work. This eclipse might kind of need a kind of create some more stability and security in your life. Moving on to Cancer. So Cancer, this is putting you in the spotlight. So this eclipse is, if you have a birthday around the middle of Cancer. No, not the middle of Cancer. Like kind of that last 10 days of Cancer. It's at 28 Cancers. Can't remember what date that lines up in July. Maybe I can quickly look. Hang on, everybody. So if you were born around the 12th, the 11th, the 13th, kind of plus or minus a day, this eclipse might be really putting you in the spotlight for the next 6 months. So your life might be taking a twist or turn. There's a sense of when there's an eclipse in your sign, your star sort of rises or falls, not to give you any anxiety, Cancer, but this is a time when I think that you need to really remember who you are. You're doing a lot of deep work right now in relationships. So nevertheless, this is a time when you're in the spotlight, Cancer, and there might be something very highlighted for you about your life in the next 6 months, because eclipses work in these kind of 6-month chapters. Cancer, Leo. So this is the part of your chart that talks about letting go. This is about this like it's the end of your chart. It's like the last sign. So you're really sort of shedding the past, doing a lot of internal work and existential questioning and searching for answers. And this may include also spirituality. It might be a time when you need to kind of step back from the world and recuperate or reflect or go on a retreat. It's a very quiet part of the chart. So Leo, just think about what you don't want to bring with you into 2020. I mean, I know we're here, but we're barely at this point. And also this talks about spiritual health and in relation to physical health. Virgo, this is the part of your chart that talks about friendships and community. So you're really needing to, let's say, take action and connect, and really finding your people. So it might be a very social time. It might be a very busy time. And maybe there's this need to have more friends. So Virgo, make sure you're getting out of the house. You're being amongst your allies, your comrades, whatever, your community. This is what this eclipse is all about. Libra, this is the part of your chart that talks about career. So this is, Libra, you're one of those signs with Aries and Capricorn and Cancer, where these eclipses are activating your chart in a more active way. There's a better way to say that. But this is an eclipse where you may have to, maybe you're seeing a job change. Maybe you're thinking about applying for a new job. Maybe you're looking to make a career change or just go in a different direction. This is a very public part of your chart. So there's a sense of, you're in the spotlight, so to speak. You're out there in the world. And I think that because Libra, you've been doing all this work down to the bottom of your chart to create some foundation in your life and to replant down roots, that's going to be the support for you as you go through this eclipse. It's like whatever your professional ambitions are and whatever you're doing out in the world, it needs to have a solid foundation. So you might see some professional changes in the next 6 months, and even changes of title. Moving on to Scorpio. So this is the part of your chart that talks about foreign travel, education, and more of this kind of bigger, what do you believe in? What's your faith? What's your truth? So this eclipse might, need some immediacy. Maybe you're traveling. I mean, I'm a Scorpio and I'm traveling. Maybe there's this sense of really trying to express your philosophy and really kind of commit to something right now. But there's so much right now that's going on with education for Scorpio. And even if you're not in school, there's a need to really exercise your mind. And I think that after everything that you've been learning and studying the past couple of years, while Saturn is in Capricorn, there's a need to kind of demonstrate what you've learned at this point. It may also speak to writing and publishing, if that's something that's relevant to you. Sagittarius, this is the part of your chart that talks about really needing to go into the deepest parts of yourself, the psyche, the shadows, the even like emotional and ancestral baggage. It is Cancer. And what did you inherit from your family? And I don't mean something literal. Maybe it's something on an emotional and psychic level. So that might be something that's kind of revealed. There's a need to take action. But it might be, let's say, a very emotional time when you're feeling vulnerable, and in themes of intimacy as well, Sagittarius. So Capricorn, this is the part of your chart that talks about relationships. You need to make a decision about a relationship. If you are in partnership right now, something about the connection is changing. Maybe you're going to the next level. Maybe you're committing to each other. Maybe you're breaking up. Maybe you've been thinking about breaking up. If you're single, this is a time when it's about new people coming into your life, new relationships. So really seeing who enters your life with this eclipse. Aquarius, this is the part of your chart that talks about health and wellness and how you take care of your body and how you show up on a day-to-day level. So you might need to take some action with your physical health. And since we're at the beginning of the year, when the time of year when you kind of make these resolutions, certainly this goes hand in hand with this eclipse for you. So what are your healthy physical resolutions? Is it to go to yoga or go to the gym? Is it go to take a walk more, to get outside? Is it to get your life organized? So it's really about that physical life, your day-to-day detail life that this eclipse is highlighting for you. And then last but not least, Pisces. This is the part of your chart that talks about how you express who you are. This thing around identity and persona, creativity and talents. So you're sort of there's this need to really be yourself at this time, Pisces. So just remember, nobody else can be you. And so it's like, who are you? You're the sign that kind of can sometimes, flow and merge into people and things, but it's really time to really make sure you're getting a chance to be yourself. And then I will say just, maybe children and pregnancy are also highlighted if that's something that's relevant to you. I'm just going to check in on the comments. Yeah, I'm also laying low, Bonnie. But nice to see some familiar faces. Thank you all for joining me. Yeah, there's a lot going on this week. So I think that there's been other times, let's say over the last however many years, where just the astrology tends to converge, and it's very I don't know, makes you wonder. It's because it seems like, okay, why would it all come on this one or two dates? It just reminded me that when we had some really intense astrology in April of 2014, and it spoke to maybe some things happening, and for many people it was a quiet time, but I do think that was something that was birthed at that point. I think that was a time when we all had to change in some way, and then here we are, it's 2020, and these kind of different things are converging, and it might not be obvious right away what's happening. I just think that we always have to be grounded and check in with ourselves and just kind of listen to our intuition and see what is coming up for us. What do we need to learn? What do we need to let go? What's in our blind spots? Maybe our dreams are very active right now. I feel like I've been having weird dreams since the new year. But yeah, that's the astrology for this week. We can do it. We can make it. And I think that this new time that we entered with the eclipse on the 26th is really about clearing some space for the next big chapter of our life. We are coming to the end, or almost the end, of these eclipses in Cancer and Capricorn. We will have one more round in June and July, and then the eclipses are going to start to go into Sagittarius and Gemini, and then it's a whole other new story that's coming in. So don't be afraid of the emotional and psychic and let's say spiritual work this week. If you're kind of showing up this big in a relationship, or this big in your career, or this big in something else, how do you break through those old limitations and those boundaries and the limits that you thought that was it, but then there's something completely different that's waiting for you on the other side. So that's my hope for you all. If you want to learn more about the Saturn Pluto talk in particular, like I said, there's a clip. I put it in the show notes. It's from the Starstruck 2020 Global Astrology Summit. You can still register to get all 24 talks, including mine. But I am pivoting from that. I am doing a webinar tomorrow on January 7th, and that's at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So if you've been wondering what's up with the astrology this year, and I did do a talk back in November in New York City, and I got a couple of people like, oh, are you going to do it? For us, we're in Canada, we're in Australia. Yes. So this is kind of your last call, but that said, if you don't make the live webinar tomorrow, I know time zones can be tricky if you are down in Australia or in Europe. And by the way, Australia, I'm so sorry about the fires. It's really terrible what's going on. Anyway, you can still register to receive the video and audio replay. So I'm going to go through what the eclipses mean some more, especially as they go into Gemini and Sagittarius starting in the middle of 2020. I'm going to talk more about Saturn and Pluto. We've got Mars retrograde in 2020. At the same time, we have Venus retrograde as well. Mars is going to spend half the year in Aries, which is kind of bananas if you think about it. So it's for Mars to be in one sign for that long, for Mars to spend retrograde in Aries, I don't know. Yeah. So those are two big things that are happening this year. So do join me tomorrow for the webinar. The links are in the show notes. And that's it for this week. I mean, no big deal. We got this. So thank you all for joining me tonight and sharing your stories and being here with me to talk about this astrology. It's nothing to worry about. It just is. The universe apparently, everything's kind of converging this week. So I think it's important, as I was saying earlier, that it's part of this story that started in 2008 and how we've been doing with transforming that part of our life. So do follow me on Facebook if you don't already. Follow me on Instagram. I'm Empowering Astro. I'm also on YouTube. I'm on Twitter. Please sign up for my newsletter. And don't forget to read your January horoscopes, which are in the show links, but you can go to empoweringastrology.com, go to my horoscopes. You can also book a session with me. I love working with you one-on-one. And in fact, I see some familiar faces in the comments of people that I have worked with. So thank you all for joining me tonight. And until next week, take care. Bye.